G'day everyone. Today we're going to go through some information relating to activations, what they are, what they mean, what you can do with it, and at any different time within our lives we can have these moments of a rapid energetic activation. And they come as a shift in a belief pattern. It's a change in a direction of our life. It can be experienced in a change in a thought process, change in the way that we feel or we process information. It can be a turn your life upside down sort of thing as well. Lots of us have experienced this in different ways, and at different times it will come on stronger in the collective as well. It seems that there are times of mass activation that are followed through integrative periods, so a process of integrating that information, and then it shifts into moments where it seems like there's a lot more mass activations that are occurring. The interesting thing with these though is that it's a one-directional thing. So once you feel a new truth, once you see a new truth, or you see the new truth in the world and the way things work, there's no real going back to that. There's no undoing of that. So this is how this expansion process is happening, how this awakening process is actually happening for the earth-based experience that we're part of. That as we see these systems that are in place, as we see the truths for ourselves, they can't be unseen. You can't go backwards out of this stuff, or not very easily anyway. It's much more easeful for us to continue on this path. And then as a collective, as more and more people are experiencing this, then that grows into a more collective experience of being able to see the world and experiencing it in a certain way. So when we experience these things, when we have activations, they can be brought about in a bunch of different ways, but quite often they are met with an awareness or an awakening process that you might think, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I've seen this way for so long and now I can see the truth of it, and it's mind-blowing. But what happens is that this old system, quite often, it's a restrictive system or a restrictive thought process or a limiting belief pattern is unleashed. And it's unleashed by an interaction that we have or an experience that we have. For myself, when I've had these and when they've been quite rapid changes, the shift in the energy that occurs within my body and within my being goes hand in hand with quite a big emotional outpouring. And it goes with hysterical crying or laughing, things like that, where it's this energy that shifts. It's not really attached to a trauma or a really strong emotional response that I have, but that's what it looks like. It looks like being buckled over, just hysterically crying and not being able to control it. And you don't want to control these. As they come up, just allow them to flow and allow them to be. And the body's releasing tension out of its system. And this is stored tension that was there for a reason that no longer needs to be there. With this, quite often what happens is we start to see things differently. You might see a truth in a relationship. You might see a truth in the relationship you have with yourself. You might see a system that is at play that you've been interacting with, that you might change your perspective around. You might think, I don't need to interact with that. Or now I can interact with it more consciously, and when I do, I know exactly what I'm doing as I process through that. So I'd be really interested to hear what some of your experiences have been when you've had activations, what they've looked like for you, and what the outcomes from that have been for you. And hopefully that you resonate with that idea that this is a one-way street. As we expand, that we meet a truth, and then there's no undoing a truth. And it's a new experience of it. It's always been there. This has always been sitting there for us. It's just that as we experience it, we think, oh, wow, there it is. I can see it now. Now I can do something with it. Okay? So the process of awareness and the process of expansion of consciousness and the process of activation is one more of, it feels a lot more like remembering something that was always there compared to learning something new. Now, when we go to school, when I went to university, we learn things out of a book or out wherever you get it from a text. And they say, learn this, regurgitate it, and somebody else is telling you what's true, and you're required to regurgitate that. This is the complete opposite of that. This is exploring it for yourself in a way that develops a truth for yourself. It doesn't need explanation to anybody else. In many ways, it can't actually be explained other than the feeling and the sense that you have within yourself. And when you have that, sit with that and feel into what that is for you. And it doesn't need explanation. It doesn't need a judgment of it being right or wrong or better than what it was or worse than what it was. It's just a calm resonance of truth. And that's what this activation process is about. Initially, there's a release of energy, and then it settles back into a space where it feels resonant. It feels comfortable. It feels solid because it's your truth. That's what I want to help guide you towards with this connectivity work, is exploring that for yourself. I'm certainly not here to tell you what to think, what to do, what to feel, or what to be. But I've experienced through the work that I've done much more awareness of this truth of self, and that then leads to an experience of ease throughout our lives. Because we have a connection with what our truth is, each thing that we meet is easier to meet. Whether it's uncomfortable or not is independent of that. We can meet each of these things with a lot more ease because we have a sound foundation and a sound basis to move through our life with. We have a better knowing of ourself. Okay? So what we then start creating from this is a conscious expression of ourself. So when we have a moment of activation, when we have an expansion of our awareness, we move into a greater awareness of self and a greater awareness of the environment that we're interacting with. Something that I find fundamentally important to understand and to continue coming back to is that you are creating your reality. You, in fact, are your reality. So everything that you are aware of in your life is an expression of you. Whether that's uncomfortable, whether that's euphoric, doesn't matter. It's you. Now, this could be something like severe trauma. This could be something so uncomfortable that other people might not be able to even perceive what it is. Now, the uncomfortable truth around that is that that is created by you for you to learn, regardless of what it is. It's about whether you're able to meet that. So the way that this experience occurs is that we are an energetic expression of consciousness into a physical space, holding a physical form. The way that manifesting occurs is that in the expression of ourself, it's like a sound wave that echoes outwards and back. That in the reference point that we have in our life, in our body, that we have this expression coming outwards. If that is a beautiful resonant field that aligns with your purest self, the expression back to you will be met that way. If for some reason there is some disharmony that is occurring within that, and that could be because of some retained trauma, some retained belief patterns, some underlying potential that can be expressed as an expansion, then that will come out and will be reflected back to you with an opportunity to meet that and grow. That opportunity might be trauma. That opportunity might be discomfort. That opportunity might be a rapid knock around the head to wake us up. But if we're able to meet these consciously, and if we're able to meet those with this foundation of our sense of self, then that becomes much easier. And I hope that that resonates for some of you, or all of you, because this is the way through. That we can't move out of our current belief patterns, we can't move out of our current systems, we can't move out of this spot that we're in our life if we are anchored to it. We need to be able to see that there is potential beyond this. That any underlying belief pattern, any attachment to the past, any attachment to a future potential becomes a limitation. The greatest potential for us rises out of the space where we are connected to ourselves with open possibilities of anything occurring. And a trust that what will be presented to us is in best alignment with what we are. We get presented with what we need, and then we can meet it with that space too. And this isn't about wading through the mud and having martyrdom. You know, that some of the things that we meet are going to be uncomfortable, but some of the things can just be easeful too. You know, if we have this attitude where everything has to be uncomfortable for us to grow and for us to learn, then you end up just wading through the muck and the mud. And that's what you will create for yourself. If you can truly feel in yourself that inside there is an expression of you that is pure, that is love, that is compassion, that is understanding, that is worthy, then there is every opportunity for you to create an easeful expansion of that into your environment and then experience that from the reference point that you are in this life. But if along the way there are some bumps, that's okay, because you can meet those with that awareness and move through them and grow from them and continue expanding. And with each of these expansions, you might have these little bumps be presented to you in a way that feel triggering. That might be a person, it might be a bit of information, whatever it might be, it might feel triggering for you. And what I encourage you to do is just take that perception of it being triggering and allow that to change into calling it or looking at it as an activation. If we look at it as triggering, it becomes quite restrictive. It becomes quite abrasive. It's something that we're hitting against. If we look at what we previously might have perceived as triggering us, as activating us, then it creates a different potential for that. It allows for an activation to be the space for potential for expansion to occur from. And that might be something that you can take from this. That in the next moment that you feel that you're being triggered by something, that if you're able in that moment to look at it from the space of opportunity for expansion, then immediately you start shifting it. Immediately you start changing what it actually is. Rather than it being presented to you as a problem, it's being presented to you as an opportunity. So this is the stuff that I really feel drawn towards sharing. This is the stuff that I really feel drawn towards supporting people with, supporting you with, because this is the nuts and bolts of how do we figure out our lives, how do we figure out this reality, and how do we be the most expansive version of ourselves in this space. So I hope that this is useful for you. I'd be really encouraged if you can give me your feedback and your comments around what your experiences with this have been too. I'll connect with you again soon. I love you. We'll chat to you then. Bye.